Well, thanks so much for coming and being on my channel today, Chelsea. I think that there's probably some other moms out there that could really benefit from hearing your story. And I know it takes a lot of courage to share, so I just really appreciate you doing that.
No problem.
So wherever you feel like you want to start, where your story begins, we're ready.
Alrighty. Guess I'll start at the beginning. This was our second pregnancy. So at the time we found out we were pregnant, my daughter was 10 months, and we kind of, whatever happens, happens. We weren't really trying, we weren't really not trying. So I found out, I guess around like 6 weeks again, because I didn't really know that we were pregnant right away. And so yeah, we got a positive pregnancy test. I took like 8 of them to confirm because I need to know these things. And so I like maybe a couple days into, after finding out, we didn't really tell a lot of people yet, but I started bleeding, which has happened. It happened with my oldest daughter. She's fine, happy, healthy. But around like the 6 to 8 week mark, I was bleeding and not spotting. There was actual like, this is concerning.
Yeah.
So I went in and they were like, they did the vaginal ultrasound, and they told me that there is a sac but no embryo. And I was like, well then how? Like, I got a positive pregnancy test, and what does that mean? Like, where's the HCG hormone? And they said that it's something called a blighted ovum, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like,
right.
there's
Layman's
a sac,
terms.
where's the baby? Like, and so they said, you know, sometimes that happens during like fertilization and early stages of pregnancy, and it's very common. And they recommended me to schedule a D&C, and I was like, well, can I talk to my husband? Like, Jason wasn't there, and they're like, sure, no problem. And so I went home and we talked about it, and we were of course upset. But I think we both decided like we wanted to know more information on it and wait a bit before I actually like made the appointment.
Sure.
So I waited, I think, until I was like 8 or 9 weeks, and we went back in, and there was a little squirmy baby in the sac.
Okay.
It was an embryo.
Okay.
And so I did not obviously schedule it. Very strong heartbeat.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
we were pregnant. And that was at like, I think 8 or 9 weeks when we found out, like, for sure, pregnant, baby's fine. And yeah, so we started telling more friends and family just to pray for us during this like beginning stages, because you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were actually about to come out to Michigan for a friend's wedding, and it was our 12-week scan, and we'd been to a different office. Like, it was not our normal doctor, it was not our normal midwife. And the tech kept like turning me and moving me, which I thought was weird because that always happens, I feel like, later in the pregnancy when the baby's not cooperating. And she wanted me to like lay on my side for like 30 minutes while she's up there and like still adjusting and everything. And I'm like, again, at the time, I didn't really think anything of it, just maybe the baby's not cooperating at 12 weeks or whatever. And so she kind of left the room without saying anything. And Jason and I are like,
Because you'd had Sophie already, so you knew
already
like
had a
this
baby,
is a little
like,
weird.
this is taking way too long.
Yeah.
We just knew something was up. We just didn't know what. And so a different guy came in and he introduced himself and everything, and he's like, well, there's a little bit of an issue, and you need to make a decision today of what you're gonna do. And I'm like, what's wrong? What decision? Like, am I having a baby today? And so he told us that the baby's head, or the baby's skull, was not fully formed from the back of his neck to like the front of his like eyebrow area. can't remember that. Right there.
Yeah.
And he told us that it's a condition called anencephaly where basically early stages of pregnancy, the baby's head will not form all the way within that 8-week period. And there's certain outcomes and there's many different things that could happen, but a lot of babies don't make it after birth, essentially. So, of course, we did not handle that well. He basically said, well, we can take care of this today. We can do a termination pregnancy and you can be on your merry way. And we're just like, but we can see him moving around and he's alive and he's fine. And so of course we asked a billion questions, wondering well, what can we do? What do we expect? We don't know anything about this. So he gave us some pretty legit statistics where most of the babies that have anencephaly and that are born vaginally do not survive. C-section anencephaly babies usually survive, but they only survive for minutes to hours. But then he basically said the outcome is death regardless, so why would you continue, essentially? And I'm sitting there bawling and looking at my little baby, wondering because he's alive and I don't want to do that right now.
Yeah.
So even though he kind of was a little aggressive in that sense, we're just well, we hop on a plane tomorrow, so there's going to be no termination, there's going to be no surgery. Let us just think about it, because it was kind of close to Christmas, or a little bit after Christmas.
That's okay.
So, we didn't tell a whole lot of people right away, just because we didn't, it's the holidays, and friends are getting married, and people are celebrating, it's almost New Year's, and so we told our immediate family, and they were very supportive. Most of them were very supportive and understood our reasoning and why we decided to not continue. And then
not continue with termination, you mean?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Not continue with termination.
Yeah.
So around 14, 15 weeks, we've been doing all the research and getting other people's opinions and seeing other doctors. And we there was actually a couple people we met via internet, not face to face. But they have a 5-year-old boy who is still alive to this day that has had anencephaly. His skull started back here, a little higher up than our babies, but you can still see everything. He's pretty high functioning. He can talk. He can recite a couple things. He can respond to you, which is a very rare case. And I think the longest recorded is 6 years old.
Okay.
So that's huge. So that was awesome. So either way, knowing all of the outcomes, even if we were given 2 minutes with our baby, that's 2 minutes with our baby. So we did the whole anatomy scan. We did all of our genetic testing, and everything came back normal. So that kind of gave me peace of mind that we're not carrying the gene, we're not carrying anything to have to do this again.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we carried him, and we found out it was a boy, baby Zane, and we named him Zane because it means gracious gift from God, and we thought that was very fitting because I've always wanted a boy, first of all. And he was a very sweet gift. And so leading up to the last 2 months of pregnancy, I had about 10 to 15 emergency visits to labor and delivery. Either way, I was carrying an equivalent amount of fluid to triplets and going to physical therapy to help my back.
I'm sure.
But
Was that because of the anencephaly, or was that
all
just
the
that
fluid.
random? The fluid was because of his diagnosis.
Yes,
Okay.
it was both. Most babies know how to swallow
Okay.
their amniotic fluid.
Oh, okay.
Zane, with his diagnosis, does not
Okay.
know how to swallow, therefore accumulating all of this fluid. So it's through his diagnosis and my poor back retaining all that fluid.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I was like a fish. Just drink a lot of water.
And there's nothing that they can do. They don't like drain it or anything.
They can do like a therapeutic amnio,
Okay.
where they just stick a giant needle in your belly and drain it, but you'd have to go back every single week, and the risks for that
Oh, I see.
are just like the risk for infection for you and the baby are just not worth it.
Okay.
So they did give me that option.
Okay.
I chose physical therapy because it was way less invasive.
Yeah.
And, you know, they helped just realign, they helped my back. But it was just also at the point where I was having Braxton Hicks and then real contractions at the same time with the back pain. And the most I slept in those last 2 months were about 2 hours a night.
Oh.
And so
With Sophie was like a year and a half or something.
yeah, Sophie,
Like that.
she was 10 months we found out. So she was almost a year and a half when he was born.
So
Thankfully she's sleeping through the night.
yeah, but still, that's a lot.
And through this whole thing, the last 2 months of pregnancy, they kept giving me morphine because of the pain. And then another, like, I don't know what it's called, a steroid to stop you from contracting, essentially. Okay. So 10 to 15 visits, you get to meet people while you're there. So we got to know a lot of the doctors and a lot of the nurses. And that was where we were delivering, and that was a huge blessing because they knew our situation and they knew not to bring up termination. They knew not to, like, force anything. So during all of that, we finally went back to see my high-risk doctor, and this was about a month before he was due, or baby's name was due, and he's like, I'm gonna wheel you over to delivery right now. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I was like, no, if it was up to me and I had more people on staff, we would wheel you over there right now. So this is what we're gonna do. And I'm like, no. I had 2 finals still. I had my daughter. I was nannying. I was
A lot of your family's out of state.
Yes.
So like,
and I'm
a lot
like,
of.
I can't just like go have a baby right now. That was just not good. And so I begged him. I'm like, let me just take my 2 finals and call people and arrange some kind of something so we can get this done. And he's like, the baby's full term. I mean, technically, I think goes 35 weeks, so almost, I guess. And he's like, you are suffering. I don't want any more morphine in your body, because it took the pain away and it helped me sleep.
Yeah.
So he pushed it, and he's like, if you finish your finals and you find someone to watch your daughter, you guys are going to be back in here tomorrow at 8 a.m. And this was, you get like 2 p.m. the day before.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, I guess we're going to have a baby tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I took my 2 finals. I explained to my professors I was going to UC Irvine and Concordia Irvine. And those are the last 2 finals, and then I graduate. And I emailed my professor. I'm like, I have to take my finals today because I'm having a baby. And I just have to take them. Thankfully, they were very gracious and understood our situation because I was very open with them the entire pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I took my finals that evening.
I don't know how you did that.
I passed. I don't even remember. I know it was psychology and pre-med because that was my only biology class I took.
Okay.
But I passed.
Yay. Yeah, that's amazing.
next day, 8 a.m., we went in and they immediately started Pitocin.
Were you having contractions at that point?
I was, but they weren't like, since they gave me like the morphine and everything to slow it down, they were tolerable.
Okay.
Like I talked to
It was
them.
nothing that
They were
you
not.
hadn't been having
Right.
for the last month or so. Okay.
This with Pitocin was, it was like you don't get a break in between, you know, like at least that 2 to 3 minute gap of like
Yeah.
relief.
Mm.
So, and I didn't sleep. So the night before I slept maybe 20 minutes.
I mean, how could you? Yeah.
Like,
Understandable.
that 20 minutes was great, but
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Exhausted, I'm sure.
try to like pump yourself up and get ready to push out a baby.
Yeah.
Right away they turned it on and I was slammed shut. I was not dilated at all because they gave me that stuff to keep me closed.
Okay.
So I don't even remember what number the Pitocin was at, but they cranked it.
Oh.
I am also one of those women that are incapable of epidurals. So no epidural. That runs in the family apparently, that I found out that day.
Like allergy-wise or like?
The way that our back vertebrae, I guess, line up and the way the fluid is placed and all the nerves that talk to each other is incapable to accept any kind of...
Did they try and then you find this out?
They did try.
Okay.
Because I'm like, sure, we can try, but they said I'm not...
Okay, so you knew that
We
might
knew
happen.
prior, but I'm like,
Okay.
I'm going to try because Pitocin's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, yes.
So they did try, and they like laid me down immediately or whatever you're supposed to do, and gave me about 20 minutes and then sat me back up. And they did an exam, and my tolerance for exams alone, I flinched. Like, I'm like, ah! They're like, the epidural didn't work.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
I told you.
Yeah, oh no.
So
Oh,
I
no.
already had that mindset going into it. Like, I know the epidural is not going to work. It's not going to change the outcome regardless. You just kind of, thank goodness for my husband and my doula. Like, you just had to power through.
Yeah. Did you have a doula for your first birth?
I didn't because it was so quick.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She, emergency C-section. So
Okay.
I didn't even experience labor. So this is my first time experiencing labor.
Okay. So good. That's good that you like thought about having a doula at least.
Yes.
Because that's a lot to endure.
And I did not want another C-section. I really wanted to do that just for future babies too. To have that
Yeah. Sure.
much, I don't know. Just
Yeah.
did not want to deal with that. So they cranked it pretty high, and I don't remember how long. I know we got there on the 24th of May, and I had him on the 27th. So it's a lot of labor. They did turn it down so I could rest because I kept passing out because I was just so exhausted. And then they did let me eat because, again, I just didn't have energy.
Right.
I only progressed like a centimeter the first day. So the doctor came in along with 8 other doctors who I all recognize because of all my visits.
Old friends.
All friends. And they're like, we're gonna pop you. Okay. Like, you need some relief. There's too much pressure on your back. There's too much pressure everywhere. Like, we're gonna drain you essentially. So they brought in this giant like hospital bag. Like, it looked like a trash bag, only thicker, like thicker plastic. And they broke my water, and out came 5 liters of fluid.
Oh my goodness.
And the relief that was felt was incredible. I could still feel him moving. He was fine.
Yeah.
Like, heartbeat was strong still. And I was just like, oh. And they're like, we've only seen this one other time in the history of this hospital of that much fluid. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
Lucky you. Right.
I just, not having an epidural and then having that kind of relief, just, it's like, I can do this. Like,
Right.
This is no problem.
Yeah.
So again, they cranked it back up, and contractions, I mean, they're not like fun, but sometimes I feel like now having another baby, like I feel like you want to push, and it feels good to push, and it feels good to like, oh, I can feel that contraction coming, like I'm ready.
Yeah.
I felt that day where I'm like, wow, this is good.
Productive.
Yes, finally. And I'm like, okay, you can check me, it's fine. They check me, and I'm like, 3 centimeters.
Oh.
And I'm like, so then I start passing out again because I'm so tired and no energy, and they're like, okay, you need to sleep or something, and we're going to give you some Benadryl, and you need some sleep. And I'm like, so this is day 3 now, the day he's born. They start cranking it up at like 4 in the morning, and I think that must have done it because I got to 6. I went from like 2
That's
to 3
good
to
progress.
6. Yay!
Right.
It was not fun, and pushing took about 4 hours, but I only made it to 6. I did not progress since then, but you have to remember half of his head wasn't really there. And so they're like, I think you can do this. Like, you're only at 6, but let's try. And I'm like, I do want to push. Like, can I push? And they're like, go for it.
Yeah. So your body felt like it did want to push at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
With that relief of fluid, with a little more room to wiggle down there, like, I felt it was like relieving to push. And so, again, 4 hours or so of pushing. I don't mean to sound morbid, but I wanted the fetal heart monitor to be turned off because I didn't want to hear it stop.
Yeah.
So we did turn that off at the beginning of pushing, and he was still alive, still moving, and I think it was like hour 3 is my estimate. Jason, my husband, thinks maybe closer to when he was coming out, but I think that's when he died, and it was rough. Normally babies naturally like help you, that little push that they do with their little feet coming out. He didn't really have the capacity to like do that, so that part was rough.
I'm sure.
But they did.
I'm sure.
They did get him out, and that one last contraction, I was like, I don't even know if it was the Pitocin or if it's just a normal contraction, but it felt great. And they pulled him out, and he was beautiful, and he definitely was not alive, but he was so cute, and he had little fuzz like on his shoulders and his ears, and like super hairy, but I guess we're not really hairy people, but super cute. And he was born at 11-13, 4 pounds, 10 ounces. Thank you, Jesus. Because any bigger, I don't know what I would have done.
Right.
And he was 16 inches long. He was perfect, and we had a lot of support. The doctor who delivered, she stayed there the entire time. Like, into the night, into the next day. And she's like, I'm not leaving it. I don't even think she went home. Like, she was just incredible. And the nurses came in on the day off to, like, come see us.
That's awesome.
I was just like, so, all in all, it was a beautiful birth. And I actually did it. And I didn't pass out that day.
Takes incredible strength. That's a marathon birth.
It was...
Besides all the emotional things I'm sure going on.
Yes. I mean, I think just preparing, I knew that ahead of time. But once he was finally there, I felt like relieved, but I also felt like I was, again, I don't mean this to sound morbid, but I don't think I would have been able to handle it if he was born alive, and then I had to hold him and like watch him die. Because that, I don't think I could have handled that. But knowing that he wasn't ever in pain, and like, he only knew the womb, and that giant Olympic swimming pool.
Right.
Just made that much more of a peaceful delivery, essentially. So, yeah,
that's a beautiful story.
Rough, but
Yeah.
we're good at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your emotions? I know you kind of talked about like preparing, but what kind of things did you do to prepare emotionally? Because you guys knew for quite a while, and I'm sure there wasn't a minute that went by where you didn't think about it.
Right.
So what things helped, or what were your emotions, I guess?
I was already in counseling my parents were going through a huge divorce during all of this.
You just can't catch a break.
Add to the drama of it all. We just lost Jason's grandpa, and we lost my grandpa and my aunt. And Jason was working 70 hours a week. I was nannying and doing school. I did 22 units that year, which was not smart, but all in all, like, I was in therapy / counseling for maybe 6 months prior to finding out about Zane.
Okay.
So we basically just shifted the other issues we were dealing with that one.
Right.
And I had an amazing counselor. She really just was matter of fact and like made me share and made me open up, because I like to suppress things a lot. Hence why I was in therapy originally. But we had that, and then we also had an amazing support system, like friends, family. Like, we really found out who supported us, like who was praying for us, who, like, every little thing someone did, it was like with intent, and we're just like, whoa. And we can like feel the power of prayer. Like, you'll just be having like a dark day, and then all of a sudden you're like the happiest person ever, and you're like, why do I feel this way? This is not a good time in my life to be feeling happy. And then you feel guilty, like, why do you feel anyway? It's just,
yeah, I'm sure
all the emotions,
yeah,
and all the just, you know, you can't have the normal conversation with a lady at the grocery store. Oh, how far along are you? 6 months. Oh, boy or girl? Oh, it's a boy. Oh, that'll be so fun and exciting. And you kind of just have to like, and you're not gonna like spill your guts to everybody. So
yeah.
I had a lot of, it helped knowing prior that there's two different outcomes. He could live, he could die. Regardless, his life will be short. And that I needed, I think, just to prepare those 8 months. Like, what does this mean for our family? What does this mean for me? What does this mean for my body? What does this mean for my husband? Because he doesn't have to carry this baby, but he has to deal with me carrying the baby. So a lot of counseling and a lot of support went into that prior.
That was smart to prepare, because that's too big to take on your own.
I'm glad that we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about after? You can share as much or as little as you want, but just like a little bit about the grieving process. I mean, even though you were prepared, I'm sure there was a grieving process.
Yes, there was. We, right after I had him, I just, honestly, I slept 4 or 5 hours straight, no drugs, nothing. And I just held him and I slept with him. And that was very healing for me. But then my milk came in the middle of the night. And that's when I lost it. Because I'm like, oh, like, I'm supposed to be feeding a baby and I can't, because I can't.
Right.
And so that was rough, because I was going to donate and everything, and I actually dried up within 48 hours, which is not an easy thing to do. Like,
Right.
they said it was super psychological. Obviously, you lose baby. I wanted to donate, but couldn't, because even with all the pumping I tried, and nothing was coming out.
Yeah.
So that whole period was kind of dark. Just, I have all this milk, and now it's dried up, and I can't even donate it, and I can't, do something for somebody if they need it. Or when we finally got home from the hospital, like, I never set up a crib. I never set up, all the things that you nest with. So that part was very difficult, coming home, and then, I guess I'm gonna go heal. So you go sit down in your chair. And I honestly didn't leave that room for a week. A good long week. And I watched random documentaries. I listened to music. I had like this little devotional thing. And it was just kind of just my little cave that I needed to escape in. So, there were mind games. I mean, I know evil was trying to take over, but so much good happened from it where I never let that in. And I think looking back, like, there were months. I mean, it's gonna take a while to process, and I think it was harder for Jason because he had a support system, but it's different for guys. Like,
Yeah.
he processed a whole lot differently, and just now, 3 years later, he's going to get counseling for this, and I think it's just something that they need to like process on their own. And we process together, of course, but again, they're guys, they do it differently.
Yeah, I know that it probably seemed like what good is coming from this, like you were explaining about the milk, but I know personally, like when we went through our miscarriage, obviously a different scenario, but I know you were like someone that I called, even though we don't really talk all the time by any means, especially when you live far away, but just knowing that someone that could understand loss. So I know you touched my life, and I know you have touched many other people's lives, so that's one thing that came out of it all.
Oh yeah. That seriously, in order to do that, like, we met so many people, like, that were just going through even worse stuff than we were. Like, we lost a baby, that's huge, but a lot of other people go through worse. Like, yeah, we had other stuff going on in our life, but his little life was perfect, just like little Bringer's life was perfect. And he only knew love. So I think that was our main...
a little bit comforting, at least.
Our main, like, hope.
Yeah.
Because it's not really easy to find after you lose a baby.
I'm sure.
And, yeah, the fact that, like, people, like Nicole, did reach out, like, that made me feel like, oh my gosh, maybe we did make a difference somehow. Like,
definitely did.
Regardless. So, I mean, it makes me happy knowing that.
Yeah. Totally. How can people that are maybe watching this and know someone in your situation, like, what kind of things didn't help and what kind of things did help? Because I'm sure that, like, obviously the person in the grocery store, like, they didn't know, and
Right.
It wasn't intentional, but I'm sure there were people that did know that said something that didn't help, or people that did something that made your day or made things better. What do you suggest to people?
I think just being transparent, like, not addressing, like, the elephant in the room, like, because you want to say something, but you don't know what to say, and that's okay. You don't have to, like, say anything, but knowing that you're there for that person, no matter what, like, just a call, like a phone call. Just tell me how you're doing. Like, just vent or bitch and moan. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Like, having that outlet for me helped. Or having, like, someone randomly call and say, like, hey, I hope you don't mind, I shared your story with so-and-so. They kept their baby, and the baby's going to be healthy, and it's fine. Like, oh my gosh, they just saved a baby's life. Like, hearing people say, like, I used your example, like, or I used Zane today in, like, a story that we were telling. It just came out, and I just went with it. And then a lot of people came up to me, and they wanted to know more. And I'm like, so, like, little things like that really helped. But also, like, knowing that you have that outlet. Like, people do want to help. Let them help. I am not one ever.
You are the helper.
I'm the helper. I'm supposed to help people. And I don't like people sacrificing, like, for me, because I feel like I need to do something in return, which, again, therapy. But, like, let people help you. Let people randomly bring meals or do your laundry if you trust them to do that.
Yeah.
Letting people watch your kids and, like, giving them, like, a fun activity to do, which maybe you won't yourself get through well. Like, that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about it in a room full of strangers, like, that helped a lot. People will say things, I think, without thinking. Just assumptions, like, well, what did you do? Like, what did you do to cause him to have anencephaly? You can't really cause anencephaly.
Yeah.
There are women every day giving birth to healthy babies that have been on, you name it, any kind of drug, any kind of alcohol. It's just, again, I think people need to process out loud, and it's usually angry, or, within anger, like, how could, this happen to you? You're healthy, like, you're young. I'm like, yeah, but
right.
It still happens.
Yeah. One last thing is just going into future pregnancies, which Chelsea's pregnant right now, so congratulations to her. Baby number 4. But with baby number 3 and maybe even number 4 too, does getting pregnant again, or maybe during your pregnancy, does your experience with Zane change anything for you?
Yes. There's always, like, obviously time does heal and you do have peace, but you will never forget him and your process. But, like, I know with our 3rd baby, our daughter, she came very quickly after Zane. And a lot of people have their own opinions about that. How, we just wanted to delete Zane's memory, so we got pregnant right away. We didn't even make it to our 6th week.
Oh,
I swear it's immaculate conception. But we got pregnant very fast with her, and I think I was still coming out of, like, the mourning process, and I was still kind of moving when we found out, and this overwhelming amount of guilt. And I'm like, Zane's name means precious gift. This is another gift that we don't deserve, that we really didn't even try for, and so many people are trying to have babies, and they can't. Like, why am I feeling guilty about this? And so I did go in with that mindset of, like, crap. Like, am I okay with being pregnant right now and having that, like, internal battle? But there was so much, like, grace and peace knowing that, if something happens, we know how to handle it. Like, we know the worst outcome because we've experienced it. We know the best outcome because we've also experienced it with our first daughter. So it was terrifying.
I'm sure.
The entire time, especially with her birth story. But we got a cute little spunky girl out of that one. And same with this one, we found out during COVID. Like, during a pandemic, we're pregnant. Like, are we stupid?
Guys, it's like adventure.
Apparently, we're like living on the edge. So it's just this one. I definitely had my reservations. Just I knew that my own mental health was like better than ever before after moving across the country and like changing our life and buying a house and all the things. Why not have a baby, right? So that was that own experience, but I still have like oh, Zane would be 3, like he would be a big brother for 2 girls. Like you just like you tie it in like as if he's there spiritually. But I think there's always a little bit of fear, which is normal, I think, for any pregnancy. What if?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it didn't really stop us from clearly having a 4th.
Again, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. I know that it cannot be easy, but I really think there's even more people out there than the people that you've already touched with this story, and I'm excited for them to hear it, and hopefully it finds them just at the right time. So
Yes.